What is up guys, Andy Forrest Team Runner here, and today we're sitting down and talking all about racing shoes. I want to sit down and talk about which one of these racing shoes has been my preference during 2021. Welcome back to another video, and today I thought we could sit down and talk all about racing shoes. Yeah, that's right, we've done the Speedworks shoes, we've done the long run shoes. I thought we would take a deeper dive into the races that I've done this year and talk about my preference as to which shoe I'm swaying towards using more now in the second half of this year. If you include time trials, I've done 6 races so far, and the 3 shoes we're going to be talking about today, I've used them twice each. So we've got a good, fair, even spread. My thoughts will be obviously all on those races and what's leading up or what's coming up in the end of this year. Talk about my preferences and which one maybe has been a little bit of a disappointment so far. If you're excited for today's video guys, make sure you give it a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel for weekly running content, and let's kickstart with the Obvious Ommissions. So the 3 shoes that we're going to be diving into today and talking about that I've been using are in fact the Next Percent version 1, 2, and the Saucony Endorphin Pro. Let's talk though first about the Obvious Ommissions. As I've just said, there are some that I have been able to get but have decided not to, but the majority of the reason that these shoes have been omitted is because I can't get them in my size. It's very frustrating, but as a very tall runner and someone with a UK size 13 or a US size 14, sadly some manufacturers just don't go up to my size in racing shoes. Training shoes, not a problem at all. When it comes to racing shoes, they cap off at UK size 12. So the ones that I could get but I've decided not to so far, but this might obviously change throughout the year, is the Alphafly and the New Balance RC Elite 2. The Alphafly has always been in a size 13, that's great. I think the first release only went up to 12, but literally within a month the 13 was there. Similarly with the RC Elite, when that came out I was super excited for that. The version 1 never did my size. Version 2 recently has launched a 13. I was too slow off the mark, they're all sold out now. I think there was a few left on sportshoes.com recently, but I've just hold fire to those because there's a couple of shoes which we'll talk about towards the end that I have my eye on. Other than those 2, most of the other racing shoes that I'm sure you're very accustomed to seeing other running YouTubers test, sadly I can't. None of the ASICS shoes, the Metaspeed Edge, the Metaspeed Sky, whatever they're called, can't get those in my size. None of the Adidas shoes, not even the Adios range for training shoes. The Bostons, the whatever else they do, can't get any of them. They only go up to a 12.5. The Brooks Hyperion Elites, I can get the Hyperion Tempos, the training shoe. The Elites and the Elite 2s, not a chance. And the list goes on. There's plenty of other super shoes out there that I just can't get in my size. So there are going to be some obvious ones that you guys might go, why is that not in the list? That's the reason why. Coming back to the Alphafly, I might end up getting that one very soon. Who knows? I might want to just try that one out because I haven't yet. And of course, the RC Elite 2 is another one that I have my eye on. One that is coming out, of course, these super shoes cost a lot of money. I am thinking about the new Saucony shoe that is being released in September. My money can go straight to that shoe as far as I'm concerned. I love the Pro. We'll talk about that shortly. So this video obviously is not going to include that, but we had a sneak peek of that on Sweat Elite's video released yesterday, or for you guys last week, with Parker Stinson. He was wearing it. I've seen teasers of it. It looks epic. Think Endorphin Pro, but lighter and faster. So other than that, these are the shoes that we're going to be testing today. Those are the Ommissions. Let's not waste any more time. Let's talk about these 3 shoes that I want to dive into more. Talk about the 2 races each that they've done. Talk about how they perform. So the first up, we'll talk about the Next Percent version 1. This took the January's 10k time trial, 34.50 something. Very happy with that at the time. Performed really well, and I've never been let down by this shoe yet. First run in this shoe, kind of breaking in, I don't know. The foam felt a little bit odd. Second run in this shoe, and ever since has been very reliable, very enjoyable. Ran the Shepherd Eye Marathon in it last year. It's had plenty of more miles in it. It's up to 150 or 160 miles now. Who knows? I can't remember. But we're getting up there in the mileage. The goal for this shoe, 200 plus miles, and hope to be still racing in it. So it took the January 10K and it took the most recent Rose in race. I'll talk more about that shortly. That's what that one's had. We'll talk about the Next Percent version 2. This one has had the Shepherd Eye Marathon in April, and then also has had the Gloucester 10K, which is the race previous to this Rose in race. So two of the more recent races this one has had. So high anticipation on this shoe, better upper than version 1, questionable midsole. We'll talk more about that shortly, but again, this has had the most volume of miles, a marathon and a 10K. And then we move on to the Dolphin Pro. This was used as my tune. I've still got some of the paper in here just to keep the shape of it. This was used as my kind of tune-up shoe leading in towards the marathon. Kind of regretting not using it for the marathon, to be honest with you. Did a 10-mile time trial in February in this shoe. Did a half marathon time trial in this in March, I think. So we did 56 minutes low in the 10 mile, and we did 1:14:48 in the half in March leading into the Shepherd Eye Marathon. So that's how we've used all three of the shoes. Okay, so let's talk about preferences. Negative associations, the shoe that's been a little bit of a letdown, and then of course the shoe that I'm going to be gravitating more towards for the latter part of this year, because I've got plenty more races lined up past Bristol half marathon, which I'm already training for. Got 2 other half marathons booked and plenty more in the pipeline. Other races, I just haven't announced them yet. So we'll kickstart with the Saucony Endorphin Pro. This shoe is my favourite feeling shoe, my favourite feeling race shoe that I have in my lineup, if that makes sense. It feels fast, it feels nippy. The motion, the gait cycle, everything with this shoe is beautiful. I did really well in the half marathon and 10-mile time trial in this shoe. And I still now am kicking myself a little bit as to why I didn't wear this for the Shepherd Eye Marathon itself. I've got to be honest with you, this is such a great shoe. I think my preference for this shoe is 10K and under. I do think the Next Percent is better half marathon and over. I do find myself to be more performance efficient in the Next Percent version 1 so far. But this is the closest racing shoe that I found performance-wise to the Next Percent. This is probably, as I said, my favourite feeling racing shoe. Just feels like a bit more of an old school, flat racing shoe. I used to race in flats. This feels like that. Nice, smooth, nippy, snappy. Just everything about this shoe is great. And the fit on it is fantastic. So I'll definitely be using this more, getting more miles in it and feeling really good. The negative association comes with the Next Percent version 2. Now, there are a lot of theories going around about this shoe. There's a lot of stories. I don't know what to believe, if I'm honest with you. I got this shoe and apparently the only difference is the upper. Now, I've had 2 races in it and they've both been bad races. The Shepherd Eye Marathon didn't go to plan, negative association, and the Gloucester 10K I did in it didn't go to plan, negative association. So the 2 races that I've done in this shoe, despite me training it and putting far more miles in it than just those 2 races, about 75 or 76 miles now, the negative association is real. I need to break that somehow. I need to just lace this up in a race and run a really good race. But I've heard plenty of people saying to me that they feel like the foam is different. And then more recently, I've been talking to Matt, the Welsh runner, about it on our long runs. And he said, mate, I've put the 2 and the 1 on my feet. I've done bounce tests, put cameras down there to check how much the foam compresses and responds back up. And he said there is a massive difference between the 2. I'm sure they've changed the foam in this somehow, the density, whatever it is, I don't know. And I thought to myself, I kind of feel like that, because I kind of feel like this foam isn't quite as bouncy and springy as the Next Percent version 1. That was the first thing I noticed when I put the version 1s on. If you remember back to my first videos of testing it, it was a really alien sensation. That's why the first run in the Next Percent version 1 was such a strange run. It was just so bouncy, so soft, and yet I ran the same time that I did in the Saucony Endorphin Pro. So when I was doing testing between those 2 shoes, which I did a lot of last year, this just doesn't feel as bouncy. It doesn't feel like that. It still feels light, it still feels fast. But the question is, why is it now so readily available? Nike surely wanted to kind of keep that hype up around the Next Percent. The Next Percent version 1s were so hard to get a hold of in the beginning, and yes, they increased manufacturing capacity, but now you can get these anywhere and the price is reduced. It's got to make me think, or it has made me think, have they done something to the foam to slightly make this less of a premium product and giving their elites the foam that was used in the Next Percent version 1s, despite the fact that they're running in version 2s? I don't know, I can't put my finger on it, but something is definitely different about this shoe. So I need to break that negative association. I will race in it again, and I'll race in it when I'm feeling really fit and race ready, so that I can hopefully just get a good race under my belt. But yeah, watch this space. I had a few messages on Instagram when I put a comment on it about it, and a few of you agreed with me. I'd love to know your thoughts. But this is the shoe that I'm going to be using more of. So as I said, I've laced this one up in the 10K in January, but then got it on in the Rose In after all these sorts, and the bounce is real in it. It's so much different for me than the version 2. I really felt so much more propulsion from this shoe than I did in version 1. The foam is just so lovely, soft and squidgy and springy, and I ran a really good race. Again, half of this is mental. I know, you don't need to tell me, but I've had such good races in this shoe leading up to it. I needed a good race at Rose In. I pulled out the old trusty faithful and it delivered. And despite me preferring the upper of the Next Percent version 2, I have to say that this is the one now I'm going to be gravitating towards more and going to be using. I know the race will have happened by the time you see it, but I'm recording this before the Severn Bridge Half Marathon, and this is a shoe that I'm going to be wearing for that race. And it's probably going to be the shoe that I'm wearing a lot more towards the end of the year, and I want to take it as far as I can in terms of mileage to see where it really starts to lose its pop and spring. So I just feel like this shoe has been such a reliable shoe, and something about version 2. There's something about it, so we'll see, but those are my thoughts on the races. So I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. Have you run in version 1 and version 2? Do you notice a difference, or is it just me making stuff up? These are obviously all my personal thoughts, all my personal opinions. I'd love to know what you think. Have you experienced similar, or have you just had fantastic races since you've been getting the Next Percent too? As I said, don't get me wrong, I know the majority of this is up here, and I just need to have a good race in the shoe to break that kind of mental barrier that I have with it. But on the whole, I've got to say, feeling wise, I do prefer the Next Percent 1. As always, I'd love to know your racing shoes. Which one has been your go-to this year? I know we haven't had many races, but when they start to restart, what are you going to be gravitating towards? And do you have the same issues as me in terms of sourcing shoes? Are you big-footed? Can you get hold of only a few pairs of shoes? I'd love to know. Let's just get that discussion going in the comments below. And once again, guys, I appreciate you tuning in. This has been a great 3-part series wrap up of the speed shoes, the long run shoes, and the racing shoes. I might end up doing a daily trainer one as well. It's been great fun to kind of go through, analyze Strava, see what we've done, see the mileage we've put in the shoes. It's just good to sit back and analyze all this stuff. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure you give it a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel for weekly running content, and as always, I'll see you in the next one. Until then.